And there is the problem.
I wonder what it did box office.
Guardians 1 had a bigger opening.
Wow.
1.
I mean, $96 million. That's not bad.
It's down to 94 now. And, I mean, it depends. How much marketing dollars did you spend to get that? And how many movies?
Yeah.
CDU.
This is supposed to be the big harvest, right? This is the end of their Kmart Marvel plan. No, nobody's here, so it can be open or not.
Cool. Hello, every people.
Hello, people.
There it is.
I like the fact that you're alive.
Most of you.
Hey, me too, man. I don't want to get left out on this praise be to you being alive thing. So I'm into it. I'm about it. That under $100 million for a movie with all that IP is I mean, if they hadn't just kind of turned over all their leadership, it would be like fire everybody.
Well, the one guy who's made a lot of decisions. I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
I'm compromised. I'll put it that way.
You're compromised.
I'm compromised.
We have to eliminate the target. He's compromised. We are go for total main liquidation.
I'm dealing with a little bit of an audio issue, so if you guys can give me a few minutes.
A-okay, because that gives me a chance to, for me to send out my contractually obligated tweet.
Are there still $2 theaters? Is that still a thing? Like second run theaters?
Yeah.
Huh.
I went to one in like Pasadena or something like 2 years ago, and the seats were smaller, and everybody's like just packed in there, and
Oh, really?
it was a lot of like blue collar families and stuff, like on the weekends to go to the movies, and being in Southern California, it was like a lot of like Hispanic families and stuff. So it's kind of neat because it was like
Used to be that there was a substantive difference of the quality of presentation at those because by virtue of the film being around longer, it was more prone to have scratches and marks on it and stuff. But now in a digital age, I guess it really is just a delay thing.
Well, they still do prints in like I'm trying to like this theater was like this was a couple years ago, but like man, the quality wasn't that great, and it was a rundown theater, but still it's like you got like 4 kids or whatever, and you're starting out like. Box office going to the movies is just like insanely expensive, so it serves just a very, very good purpose.
Yeah, Andrew J. Leather, the second run theater by me, which I don't even know is second run because the lines are so blurred now between like independent theater and second run theater, so it's like this will play the documentary that just came out and maybe like the independent movie that's not getting tremendous wide release, but then we'll have the bigger movie a little bit later. But that's not a $2 theater. It's a second run, but it's like a full price, but you have food and beer and stuff like that served to you in, comfy chairs and stuff. Oh yeah, Imperial Scoop pointing out as he did on Twitter that apparently my current looks not unlike Negan from The Walking Dead, which I'll take. It's fine. He's a handsome man.
Comedian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when I mentioned
what's
about the Regal Theater that got cut back from space, I was at in Florida. Did you ever see this? We had a friend that was working in this movie theater. It was way off, like, it used to be like basically Everglades, one of these huge like 30 plexes, something insane like that, right? And you've been in the theater, it's huge, it's big. He says, "You want to see something cool?" Like, yeah. Takes a key. We go outside the theater. We walk along this big long wall. He opens up his little door on the side of the wall, opens it up, and it's just dark, right? We step inside there, door closes. He turns on the flashlight, and we watched the beam cut across what looks like a football field of just dirt. And they'd had like 8 more screens or something that they hadn't turned into screens. They just left into just this massive, huge cavern in the middle of just this suburban area.
Oh my God.
That was spooky and cool and kind of like wow, like I didn't even know this. I thought this theater was full. I had no idea they had this much extra space there. Could have put a bat cave in there. I mean, it looked like an alien. You could have been a set for like an alien landscape.
I think we're ready to roll whenever we get started.
Right? He's fixing audio pipes.
Just wanted to pursuant to the conversation yesterday, last week.
It did feel like yesterday. This was a fast week.
I know, man. I feel like this year is like effectively over already. It's just like I'm on this slide to the end of the year that's like already been planned out. I got 2 days here, then up early in the morning, go down to South Florida, come back after the holidays. I'm doing a day in Vegas. And, yeah. A lot of stuff. Fun stuff, but a lot of stuff. I think Andrew's talking to somebody else.
I have a relationship with Alexa.
Yeah.
Well, I think we are in a fine enough spot to do the podcast for right now, and I have a little bit of work to do before Cord Killers.
What's the nature of the problem?
The input that I am getting, the audio input that I'm getting for this main PC here, is only coming in left channel, and it looks like one of these right channels is messed up, and toying around with that is not giving me a lot of hope that I can fix it before. So I've got a left channel, that'll be fine. And the stream output's going fine, so don't really know what's going on there. But after the show, I'll go in and just kind of take a look at everything and try to replace what we can. If that's okay, yeah. Otherwise, I'm good to go. Whenever you guys are. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Reddest.
All right, take it away. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Hi, friends. I'm back.
And Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, you wish I was back, but I'm front. No, I got nothing. Hello, hi, I'm Brian.
Just got to commit, man. Just got to commit. Gentlemen, how long are we doing this podcast?
Man, long enough to know better. 7 years now? 8?
Jeez, is that? Yeah, it would.
Yeah, 2010. Early days. It was shortly before. I think you guys started it in 2009, and I joined after the first episode.
Yeah.
This isn't weird enough. One of the ways we could keep doing this forever and ever, Marty, and ever, is by living forever.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, hold on, when you say live forever, do we need our corporeal forms to live forever, or could, a simulacrum of our personalities live on forever? Which is the more durable way to live forever?
I mean, obviously, the more durable will be some sort of like cloud type, personality upload eventually. But we want to wait for the tech to get there. And I have a funny story I've never mentioned on these microphones, which I'll bring up about that. But amusing story. I thought it was. But anyhow, I think for a while we want to keep this the meat puppets, working for a while until we work up the upgrade. And the good thing about this sort of the instead of the silicon age, the gilded age, or the gilded age of silicon that we live in now, with a lot of aging billionaires who made their money in their 30s and their 40s, is now they spend their money to pursuits that are important to them, and one of them is life extension.
Man, is it? Can we have? I'm sure we've talked about this before. We've talked about Silicon Valley vampires sucking up young people's
about that,
bloods.
Bryce.
Huh?
Talk about your role with Bryce.
No, no, I'm just saying. That's one of the kooky things I hear about is rich billionaires just getting young people's
Rich
bloods.
billionaires, Brian, with a lot
As
of
opposed
money.
to those middle class billionaires.
Rich billionaires with a lot of money.
I gotta be like middle class billionaires is like the next political campaign gaffe, like that is gonna get hung around some politician's neck.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, these wealthy, rich billionaires with a lot of money.
Yes, yes. And then they also, but that's not enough. They also want the blood of young people because it's magic, and so they put young people's blood in their bodies, and then they insist that it's not the placebo effect and that they're actually living healthier now.
And there's evidence to that. There's evidence that the having blood, and some of the evidence implies that it's not so much the idea that young blood, it's just not having all that old blood in you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, which, maybe people say that's splitting hairs, but the idea that is that you get older, that your blood might be less responsive to repairing things, et cetera, and all that. And if you get younger blood in you, that can make a difference, which also implies that there might be forms of just blood therapy, whatever, that could improve that. So, there have been interesting bits of research into that, which, it creeps people out because that just reeks of vampires and all sorts of spooky stuff. But okay.
But then there's, man, it's weird to think of your body as a symphony of all these independent systems running in parallel, because we hear that a lot of your health and even aspects of your personality is affected by your gut bacteria. Isn't it? Don't you have I want to say 30 pounds of gut bacteria? That may be insane talk.
Not that much, but still a lot. Like you got more DNA in your body belongs to gut bacteria than to you.
Yeah, and then they do gut bacteria transfusions where it's like we could change your body type by pumping in other people's blood, other people's gut bacteria.
There's other kinds of
your body type.
There's other stuff they can move from one organ to another.
Yeah, yes, lots of stuff.
It's one of these things. A doctor, we need to do a what? Are you a real doctor?
Well, the first time I heard about it, I think it was on a Freakonomics episode, and I'm like, no, they're not serious, are you? And then an hour later, you're like, this is a revolutionary field. This is going to be amazing.
So that's just it's an expanding area. There are a lot of companies now dedicated towards life expansion. There are bioethicists and stuff. Should we be focusing on extending life? Yes. Overpopulation is not the problem people think it is. And the worst problem is going to be a decrepit population, people living on, statins and things like that to stay longer, but not healthy enough to go do anything. So let's not worry about, a bunch of people who have owned houses, have worked their lives, have raised families, have acquired a lot of knowledge. I think keeping them around's a good idea. Call me crazy.
Yeah. It is. When did we first, as a society, begin worrying about overpopulation? Like, what is the first recorded time where overpopulation became a scare?
You had the point at which it became this popular sort of topic was Robert Malthus. And so around the late 1700s, early 1800s, in some of his writings he wrote on population. That was one of the first points at which it became this, maybe we need to worry about this.
And then in the 20th century, it saw a big boost with Paul Ehrlich's book, The Population Bomb, and where he, with a straight face,
Club
made
of Rome.
claims of mass famines and millions, or if not billions, of people starving to death in the mid 80s. And then the big surprise, of course, was the Green Revolution and the work of Norman Borlaug, when all of a sudden, we went from 7 bushels per hectare or whatever to 70. And
you've had even prior to the Haber-Bosch process, which was the ability to create nitrogen-based fertilizers, and because that was you get these periods where people are like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Like, one of the problems you had was Malthus's time was that the amount of human labor, the amount of available land, and then he said that, which was true. It's like, hey, if people reproduce faster than farmland, then at some point people will outrun farmland, which is, doy. And that was the basis sort of his argument, was that these things, but we found out that people don't reproduce as fast as he thought. And actually our farm yields were increasing. In the United States, we reached what was called peak farmland, like a decade or so, which means that we use less land to feed us than we did before, even though our population's increasing. And you had a problem when we started. The age of industrial revolution created benefits because, wow, we can increase the amount of yield, we can plant these farms faster, we can sow, et cetera, all these things. That created a big boon as far as agriculture. But then slowly, as mechanization increased, we started switching to combustion engines and using less animals. It decreased the amount of fertilizer. And then when we were going through the bat guano shortages, that's when the Haber-Bosch process came along, which was, hey, we can actually create nitrogen-based fertilizers, and that just dramatically increased, food production. And then, as Brian pointed out, Norman Borlaug came up with, strains of wheat that just dramatically increased food yield, et cetera. And he's, one of the biggest heroes of the 20th century, if you ask the right people. But yeah, it's been. It goes through these cycles. I just went to a conference on this like a couple weeks ago too. So I was like, that was our whole reading list was like, and there was a really great critique of Malthus by Frederick Engels of all people. And so,
oh really?
You're around a bunch of market liberals reading Engels, going, he makes some good points here. Anyhow,
Engels, the Pete Best of the communist revolution.
You have at this point. We have a lot of research for this, and one of the things that's interesting, they just discovered an anti-aging gene in an Amish population.
Oh, wow.
And, they found this group of people, they found this particular gene that seems to be, tied into longevity, et cetera. And it makes for kind of like, weird sci-fi stories, that weird reclusive people, there's something special about them. And now there's a search for more of these. But.
So, and I guess... I mean, we're so early on the research on all this stuff, and plus also, I don't know how much of the research will. I guess I shouldn't be in the business of making negative predictions, but let's say we did figure out what the gene is. It's not like we have a gene therapy that you just take a shot and suddenly have that, right?
Well, we do, and we actually have. That's another topic we get into is. You have CRISPR, which is we isolated which gene we think this is, and there's CRISPR. There's CRISPR and Cas9 are two different techniques that let you actually insert genes directly into DNA at specific points. And there are now people who are like experimenting on their own with this stuff, doing their own like gene therapy. Which,
that's right.
Could go wrong.
So this is, I mean, I guess like when the price of doing this comes down enough and the possibility of it succeeding yields such a tremendous reward. I mean, hell, like why not have your Hialeah inside the garage liposuction if it meant gene therapy that could make you live for another 40 years, right? People already do it for cosmetic reasons. This is literally life extension.
So here's a headline from the Mirror. Rogue scientist attempts to make himself superhuman by editing his own DNA to get boosted strength and muscle growth. Hosea Zahner, a biochemist and former NASA worker, has become the first person known to have edited his DNA after removing a protein which inhibits muscle growth. And this is from 2 days ago. Rogue scientists are editing their genes in a bid to make them superhuman, which boosts strength. Biochemists sort of repeated that. He used the CRISPR tool. He said, quote, "This is the first time in history that we are no longer slaves to our genetics." It's such technology.
That's a bit of an incendiary.
Okay. but not illegal to edit your own DNA.
Yep. Stay off my property, government. I'm editing my DNA.
Now, do we know how successful he is? Like, does the new DNA propagate through your whole body, or are you briefly a chimera with two different sets of DNA?
He initially expects to see extra muscle growth in that one arm that he injected. Another U.S. biohacker plans to insert a genetic mutation that lets humans see the ultraviolet spectrum.
Okay, that doesn't seem like that would work because it's a bit like trying to learn language past the critical period. I would think like let's say you suddenly had the ability to see ultraviolet. I don't know that the brain would know how to handle that data or show it. Like yeah, because like my wife is legally blind of one eye, and even if that eye just magically fixed itself today, it wouldn't. Her brain wouldn't know how to process any of that.
Well, I mean, if it got the extra input, would it maybe over time evolve? Because we know that like people who have been deaf since birth, when they do cochlear implants.
That's true. That's true. And it's not as bad as because we used to think that the brain was just super rigid past the age of 15 or so. But neuroplasticity indicates that that we were wrong about that. But
yeah,
I don't know.
So this guy's basically going to turn himself into Morty from an episode of Rick and Morty. The one arm is mutated.
One gigantic, super big, murderous arm.
Yeah. I think this is dangerous. I think this is fraught with peril. I think this is maybe borderline stupid, and I wholly encourage it. Listen, that was like there was a lot of controversy over was it the herpes virus study that was being done in I forget which country, where there were some researchers that thought the process was very long, so they went and they did it over there. Then they had some promising results. Then Peter Thiel came in and funded it, and then it got conflated into Peter Thiel funds this overseas study and da-da-da-da. It's like, the people screaming the loudest had the least amount of information to go on that, and it was people were completely knew what they're being tested. The researcher who did the research had tested on himself and whatnot. But, you get in this era of like there's a lot of exciting, promising things happening, and sometimes maybe the existing processes by which we say yes or no to testing this thing or the hurdles you have to go through, there's an argument to be made that they're quite onerous, and that if you're a small team that has a pretty effective technique that you want to test, the cost doing that, we have to listen to politicians yell about, the pharmaceutical industry. What does it cost to bring one drug to market? What is the cost for just trying to bring one drug versus including all the other stuff they test and does not work, and not a lot of talk about, is it really expensive to do that?
Well, it certainly is very expensive. And it's one of I've always been fascinated by the industries that, and not to say that it's wrong that they are forced to do this, but are kind of forced to play defense against themselves. Like the fact that, the cigarette industry funds their own opposition, PSAs and all the medicine companies that are, the drug companies that have to film all the like softly lit B-roll of the woman like rolling out pizza dough while they talk about how your stomach's gonna inflate to the point where you float away and you're gonna have all sorts of horrifying side effects because legally they have to mention that they happened during the trial for the drug.
Atmospheric floatitis. Oh, oof.
Yeah.
There's the attorneys, who are, just asking for family members to, file lawsuits.
Yeah, if you or someone has had their stomach inflate to the point where they comically lifted above the skyline, please.
This is not Harry Potter, folks. This is serious.
Yeah.
It's a it gets into an area that people get uncomfortable with. But I mean, I would argue that probably, you have a greater chance of getting sick from a farmer's market than you do from, a number of these trials. And some of these trials they do, like, there's, dangerous things and things have happened. They've done gene replacement. There was a gene replacement study that, killed people, and it was just done sloppy. It was poorly done, but it was a regulated trial, and, and that people have that the precautionary principle is one of the most dangerous things ever, is that we overestimate the danger from one thing and vastly underestimate the benefit from something else. So.
Yeah, I wonder, even if like it seems, I don't know, wholly irresponsible to, modify your own genes, but it also
awesome.
seems, Yes, yes, but it also seems like now is the best time in all of human history because if you do something wrong, they'll hopefully be learning a lot from your mistakes so that in the next 20 years they can fix it. If like theoretically whatever you mess up, I assume it's possible to fix back.
One would hope, if you're around and alive.
And if not, you're gonna die trying.
I at that conference I went to, the population conference, is interesting is that I talked to two people there who had the I think they were the Alcor medallions, which is if you die, put me on ice, call this number, and we'll come pick up your body and put you into frozen storage, and then revive you at a later date. And the two people I talked to, having to hear me talk about space stuff and science stuff, were surprised that I didn't have one. Like, what? You don't have this? What? You don't have this? And I'm like, I think the singularity is more likely. So I'm sure there's a backup somewhere.
Yeah, and the big problem with that is, of course, when you freeze the body, ice expands, all the water in your body, they become little daggers, and your whole body, upon being frozen, gets freezer burned, basically, which means your brain just gets cut to ribbons, and you become this porridge sludge. But the counter argument is, well, yes, we can't imagine how to put those pieces back together today, but in 1,000 years, they'll just run a scanner, and it'll be the best copy of my body that exists.
Well, Brian, I want you to refer to the alcor.org page. Myth number 2, cryonics freezes people.
Oh, really?
Which, to be fair, I said they freeze people, but... Well, Brian, the current technology favored by Alcor is vitrification, not freezing. Vitrification is an ice-free process in which more than 60% of the water inside the cells is replaced with protective chemicals that just wrap your cells in a warm hug. This completely prevents freezing during deep cooling. Instead of freezing, molecules just move slower and slower until all chemistry stops at the glass transition temperature, approximately minus 184 degrees centigrade. Unlike freezing, Brian, there is no ice formation or ice damage in vitrified tissue. Blood vessels have been reversibly vitrified, and a whole kidney has been recovered and successfully transplanted with long-term survival after vitrification temperatures of minus 135 degrees.
I like the whole do you want to build a straw man thing where you set me up and then turn me around.
No, I had no idea. I had heard that there was like new processes they used that didn't freeze.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I wonder what I read what Alcor says. I'm like, because I'm sure they got to hear this all the time.
Sure.
No, I was not. I believed as you did. And as I said the words, I'm like,
maybe I should check that.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. I had heard that they were, I guess that must be the same process, but the way I'd heard it was like basically antifreeze so that everything doesn't quite freeze.
Myth number 3, cryonics preserves dead people. The purpose of cryonics is to save the lives of living people, not inter the bodies of the dead. Death is a neurological process that begins after the heart stops. A stopped heart only causes death if nothing is done when the heart stops. That's emphasis theirs. Cryonics proposes to do something. In the words of a mainstream critical care expert writing for the American College of Surgeons, in this area of critical care, death is more a process than an event. A prognosis of death cannot serve as a diagnosis. So their argument is like, no, like we're preserving you. Like you may be partly dead.
Wow.
But if you come to us, we will stave off the wolves until we can rescue you.
Man,
death, pause.
Death,
save point.
Death as a process, not an event, is. I mean, that's totally accurate, right? Because when does death count? With clearly you can have conscious thought after your heart stops beating for some amount of time.
So what is the deal with this company? Like, do you pay them monthly, like just so they can spring into action, or is that a one-time thing, or what's the deal?
I wonder if you can make them a beneficiary of your insurance or something.
We got minimum cryopreservation funding amount $200,000, whole body cryopreservation.
So you just pay into the trust, and then the trust makes money as an investment portfolio.
And I think their myth page hinted that insurances can sometimes pay for this.
While other people may buy into the death myth. Yeah, I think I've heard that too. That like you can use your insurance policy to cover it.
Although if you think about it though, you can't use your life insurance policy to do it because if
You're not dead.
exactly.
Well, but again, if the insurance company says you're dead,
That's how interesting. The first time they turn the light back on for somebody, insurance companies are going to be like, whoa, 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 Consumer Fraud Division, activate.
Exactly. We're going to need all that money back. Well, I'll tell you what. You guys can make sure that we are not only doing this show each and every week, but also each and every week forever, even if one of us dies.
Well, and again, not technically dead. Death is a process, not an event.
Dead.
oh,
We'll just
funding methods. Number 1, life insurance.
Wow.
And they list life insurance agents that will sell you the policy.
That's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what, you guys can help make sure that happens by going to patreon.com/weirdthings. That's where you go ahead and kick in some cash. We do the show each and every week. We have a great time. And also, you get your own little RSS feed. Man, if you've never become a patron on patreon.com, you got to go ahead and do it just for these special RSS feeds. They make sure that no matter what level that you're at, you get the exact, all the benefits that you pay for. I know, personally, I've not kicked up my extra money to different companies because I've always been afraid when they're like, oh, get bonus podcasts. I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going to get these things from, or I'll have to listen to them through a browser. Easy peasy lemon squeezy when you go to patreon.com/weirdthings. Get a special RSS feed, enter it right into the podcatcher of your choice. It could not be easier. You go ahead and get not only this show, but also After Things before anybody else. It is a great time. Go ahead and do it. Patreon.com/weirdthings.
Gentlemen, little side note you might find interesting. Last night I was at a friend's birthday party and I got to talk to Dr. Phil Lubin. Phil Lubin, who we've mentioned before, is the scientist who kind of really advanced the state of laser propulsion. Did some great papers talking about how we have the technology now using things like phased arrays, which is a bunch of emitters acting in concert, which can create a beam that goes much further out. And that was the Project Starshot, the whole, hey, let's send a probe to the next star system. That was based on Phil's work. And then kind of, I would argue, took credit for Phil's work, even though citing Phil's work is why that exists. But anyhow, one of the other interesting applications he talked about is if you have a large laser array on the Earth, what they could do is you could use it to lift satellites and things like the International Space Station to higher orbits. Not with by just a steady beam of light hitting it and the photons bouncing off of it. Not to any degree, like there's certain materials you can cover it that's not going to fry the occupants on board. The energy levels are low or whatever. And it was just very interesting, hearing like the different sort of applications and stuff for that. And I think we need to build a big ass laser. I think we need the big ass laser initiative.
You want to weaponize planet Earth and have it ready to go?
That's one option. One way to frame it, Brian.
Well, I mean, you got a lot of people out here that got a lot of money, that have a lot of forward thinking. Like, Elon is obviously like very scared, or rightfully ringing the alarm bells about AI and stuff like that. You got to figure at some point someone's got enough money and enough land out in the middle of America that they're going to build some gigantic super space laser, JIC.
Sure. Hey, speaking of being scared of AIs, they beat us at chess, and we said nothing because I didn't play chess.
Chess is for nerds.
They beat us at Go, and I remained silent. But now, coming for our parkour. Did you see the latest Boston Dynamics robot? Parkour, backflipping, jumping around robot.
CG, Brian, it's not real.
I wish.
Not real, Brian.
That is here. We're looking at it right here. It's
real.
The video is titled "What's New Atlas," and he's jumping on boxes and jumping from box to box, and you see the stabilization in the knees as he's wobbling, as he jumps, does a 360. And then jumps like Michael Scott on The Office.
It's not real, Brian. It's not real.
Get ready for the backflip. The backflip of a humanoid robot.
It's not real, Brian. It's not real. I don't live in this universe.
And then the triumphant arms raised. It makes me sad. Again, leave us parkour.
I remember going to Disneyland and watching the Asimo demonstration, the robot. Remember Asimo, the robot?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And not the most high-tech thing compared to what we have today, but they have this moment where he, runs across the stage. I saw this with a friend, Mary Jarris, right? We watch him, he goes, he's going to run across the stage. He goes, he does this, scurry across the stage, and people are delight. Mary and I just stare at each other just in horror because it was so lifelike, and they made it small so it doesn't scare you, but and that's part of it, is they make these things a little smaller so maybe a person can pick it up, but you make it bigger, and it's terrifying. It is terrifying. I saw this, I'm like, oh, that's the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
I mean, because that's a killing machine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That back flipping. We're all like, look at him. He can do a back. Look, put him in the Robo Olympics. He's such a cute little bugger. That's a killing machine.
Roomba with a 9mm gun attached to it. To be fair, but it's that psychologically, it's that uncanny valley of just watching this thing, or the other side watching this very human-like thing. That's like, there's no soul there.
Yeah. It reminds me of I got a tweet earlier today. I'm gonna see if I can find it, but somebody sent to me. It was part of some kind of spam campaign. If you type in lethal autonomous weapons, it's this little 8-minute short movie of taking place in the very near future, where basically a cloud, just pointing out the incredible lethality of drone clouds. If you have a swarm, you can have one big drone, attach to the side of a wall, explode, creating a hole, and then the 20 small ones come up, each one with basically a single bullet, basically getting right up to the forehead of a human, and then pop, and then just make brains go squishy. That's terrifying.
Yeah, the future's scary. I'm gonna go talk to these Amish people
who live forever with their awesome genetics.
I mean, is this what the dawn of firearms were? We're just all right, we're used to kind of fighting with these certain tools, and now all of a sudden,
just the rules are all different.
Yeah, there's just this quantum leap in violence.
I'll tell you what, on his podcast, Hardcore History, Dan Carlin talks about the invasion of Genghis Khan and all of his hordes, and he couches it as the possessors of the most advanced military technology on the planet. Nobody was able to do mounted archery until Genghis Khan's folks, and then as a result, nobody had any way to handle that, and they just got steamrolled right over it. So I could totally see the next something like this. Oof. Can you imagine the terror of just looking up and seeing a cloud of those things coming, and knowing that you're just radiating your heat signature, and this AI little flying bug has one bullet with your brain on it?
Blarp is what my comment is officially.
Is that the sound of you pooping your pants?
LARP, I don't know. That's horrifying. Look at it, just pouring out. What is this for?
I don't.
Just some video that the Future of Life Institute created.
Yeah,
he's a UC Berkeley professor. Stuart Russell is the host of this video. I don't know, but
so this is real, or
no? This is all fiction, but there's no reason that I think they were just basically doing a awareness campaign. Basically, several people I've heard who are in the security business say that the public at large does not appreciate what an existential threat drone technology is going to be, because it's going to be so cheap and so available. Once you start strapping bombs to it, you spend $500 on, a decent drone. Just program it to swoop in the middle of a, you could think about somebody giving a giant speech inside a Super Bowl Superdome or whatever, and the thing just flies right up and explodes on stage.
So they're one of the groups that's talked about the risks that we face if we don't kind of keep an eye on AI. And they're not anti-AI, but one of these. And I like their their scientific advisory board. Nick Bostrom, all right, cool. George Church, great. Christoph Koch, learn a lot, listen to him talk. Elon Musk, great. Martin Rees, great. Alan Alda, Morgan Freeman.
Hey, listen, man, somebody's got to be there for the parties.
I mean, and also Alan Alda, you know, he's a fan of science. He hosted the Scientific American TV show, right?
I just love it. You know, listen, who's there to? I'm here to talk to the AI and to talk them down.
Yeah.
Do you like the sweater? I got this in Connecticut. It's very nice. So speaking of very frightening automated things, did any of you watch the Tesla announcement?
I didn't. I just listened to the side chatter. Can you talk me through the highlights of that?
So Justin, you watch it?
Just the highlights online.
So it's worth watching the whole thing if you get the chance. So Tesla was going to predictably unveil their Semi. They want to have a semi truck, which they hope will, help limit the use of CO2 fuels. I mean, carbon, CO2 using fuels, et cetera, for transportation. Part of their plan is not just to be like, oh, well, how are you powering it? Well, they want to use solar power to, provide the energy for it. That's the goal. So anyhow, they have these semis that look to be, because they're electric, look like they haul ass. It's a technical term from that. They did a big unveil. They showed that. They showed all the different features of this, the power, et cetera, and that they're going to reduce the cost of, per mile cost by like 30% or something to that effect. They explained that Musk said that if you're using these in a convoy, if you have a number of, we talked to this on the last podcast actually about the idea that Tesla might be talking about using a bunch of these semis in a row and drafting off of each other. Tesla said that, Elon Musk rather said that, hey, this will actually be cheaper than rail, which is, a big, phenomenal kind of thing. So kind of really amazing. He did a really cool intro. They did it over at the, that airport is the airport right next to SpaceX, by the way.
Right on.
So they did the unveil there. They showed the different models they had of the Tesla Semi. They're taking pre-orders now. We predicted on this podcast that probably one of the first people to buy some of them would be Walmart, and that's what happened. A number of other companies that have to have their own fleets have made reservations on it. We don't know how many have been made yet. He showed how fast the thing accelerates. It goes 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. This is a Semi. It gets fully loaded with 80,000 pounds of cargo. It has something like a 500-mile round trip range, which is incredible. That's twice what sites were saying. The Verge, and well, the problem is it's going to only have like a 240-mile range. No, it had double the range some people were predicting. So going up an incline, a 5-degree incline, can go 65 miles an hour. An amazing beast if they're able to deliver. That's obviously with Tesla, that's the big question. Can they deliver it? And then he had, one more thing. Like they said, he's like, thank you very much. The lights went out. It's like a concert, it's like, I guess Van Halen's ready to leave the stage, but then he goes out and he starts shaking hands with people and Elon Musk is still lurking around. You're like, wait a second. Then one of the semis moves towards the center and then it's totally dark. And then all of a sudden we see 2 headlights and then something rolls out of the back of the Semi.
And so what is this, a new Roadster?
Roadster 2, Brian.
Roadster, yeah.
Roadster 2. 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds.
Wow.
Okay. Top speed, and that's the spec. That's where Elon Musk says right now. He says the actual speed will be faster. Top speed, 250 miles an hour plus, and ready for the range, 620 miles of range.
Wow. How long? I wonder how long it takes to recharge that Semi.
30 minutes to get 400 miles of range.
What? That's extraordinary. And that really could be like if
I'll take you down for a Semi and a Roadster. Taking your order now.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, put that on my bucket list. Just got to make a few scam stuff. Having a big sale this weekend.
So here's the brilliance of Elon Musk and why he irritates some people and others go, yes, this is brilliant. So they unveiled the new Roadster 2 and said, hey, this thing's going to ship in like 2020. And it's going to be the Founder Series. They're going to do a limited edition, 1,000 of the Founder Series, $250,000. You have to pay the $250,000 now.
You just write that check, and sometime down the road, you get this amazing beast.
Yeah, and Tesla gets $250 million interest-free loan.
Just boom. Wow.
And if you want to get just the regular Roadster 2, there's upgrade packages, things like that. That's just a $50,000 deposit.
Wow. How much is the Roadster 2 going to be, not Founders Edition?
$200,000, Brian.
Oh, well, that seems reasonable.
Yeah. There's watching the video right now. Look at the video. If you want to turn on the volume on it, actually start it from before and like listen to the audio on that. That is amazing.
Ready? Head up against head restraint.
Yes,
3,
sir.
2, 1.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Woo!
80 miles an hour.
Oh my god!
Like that. That was 80.
That was like a roller coaster. Oh my god, the G-forces. That is incredible. Oh wow.
Do that all night long. Just crazy.
Oh my god.
All night long.
I would imagine
That is
it doesn't
intense.
help much
And
seeing
the carbon
the
ceramic
video
brakes
to
are a
make it
must
sound
to be
any
able to
less
stop this.
sexual. Like it really sounds like
yeah.
somebody just had a moment.
Yes. No.
This just in, new update from Brian Brushwood, free ride in a Tesla Roadster 2 to the first 1,333 people who buy the Outlaw Vault.
Oh. Yeah, there you go.
Expected ship date 2020.
Smart. I like it.
Man, obviously this made a big splash, including Elon never shy of setting the bar where it is. He then went to Twitter, and in typical Elon Musk fashion, then also teased, "Hey, it's amazing what you can do when you apply the rocket technology that we're working on with SpaceX to some of these vehicles."
No. Is it for reals?
For real.
Not saying the next generation Roadster's special upgrade package will definitely be able to fly short hops, but maybe. That's amazing. Just a question of safety rocket tech applied to a car. Wow.
So that's the world we live in. The thing I was thinking about was you're talking about a production car that can go 250 miles an hour or more. And one of the things that we talked about before is Elon Musk with the Boring Company, by which I'm wearing a hat right now. They talk about the idea of like having these tunnels and putting cars onto these skates, these electric skates, which would go ridiculously fast, a couple hundred miles an hour through a tunnel to get, the throughput really high. I think that's time to start thinking about the idea of, as you get more electric cars on the road that can go stupid fast, the idea of not just a special lane for electric cars or robot cars for automatic cars that are under fully automatic control, but the idea of saying, oh yeah, we'll make the speed limit, 150 miles an hour.
I mean,
Well, you would hope so, right? Like you would
Yeah.
hope that once you can have some assurances that these things are going to just be running programmatically, that you would be able to turn the heat up a little bit, right?
yeah, the man, it's going to be an interesting 10 years, I guess. What kind of penetration do you think we'll see in 10 years of these? Because I'm already like in one day in Austin, and obviously there's a selection bias with Austin being a fairly hip Silicon. They call it the Silicon Hills. I saw 6 Teslas in one day just driving around, and I saw a Model X and 5 Model S's, and I wonder how much farther, where that, if not Teslas, then similar style cars.
Well,
I mean, I think we're probably in the 3 most like least representative cities for that
Right,
question. Right?
Austin,
Like,
Oakland, and LA. Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of Tesla. I mean, like, listen, I was one of those things that I noticed when I first moved to Oakland was that like I was parallel parking, like bumping my 2007 Toyota Matrix bumper into Tesla Roadsters that are just randomly parked on the street. So
well, that's where it's something like there's like a couple 100,000 Teslas out there now, right? And in LA, like I see, half a dozen an hour. they're everywhere. I walk out in my parking lot in front of me in the supermarket, I'll see some Teslas there. That being said, once the Model 3 production ramps up, either, first half of next year or the second half of next year, it's people are like focusing too much on the 6-month time frame and not the 2-year and 3-year time frame. When they get up to, their goal is to get up to something like 500,000 a year in production.
Wow.
And the total, that's when, and that's, you're going to see these things everywhere. And then as you get other car companies start increasing production, as the demand increases, GM has announced an entire fleet of electric cars they want to make. I will take GM seriously when they start building battery plants and when they start building their own charging networks, and they could do two of those things by making strategic investments. But when they start saying that was a problem with like the Bolt, was like, yeah, Bolt seems like by all accounts like a really solid car. And GM's like, no, it's not a compliance car is a term they used because under regulations right now, car manufacturers have to produce a certain number of electric vehicles, to meet certain, the government demands. And those are called the compliance vehicles. So they'll do a limited number to meet that. And so GM's like, no, the Bolt's not a compliance car. We want this thing to sell huge numbers. Well, the problem is that like they produce such limited numbers of electric cars that the incentives for electric car manufacturing works way more to their advantage than Tesla, because Tesla's like, even if we keep the same, laws that got, the incentives that government, right now, the Congress is threatening to get rid of, Tesla's like, yeah, well, once you start doing 500,000 cars a year, those incentives don't help you because you run out of this. There's no more incentive money there, et cetera. So point being, once companies like GM and stuff say, oh, no, let's really make a car that makes a profit on their own, like Tesla's trying to do, and once they start putting together an infrastructure, that's going to be big. That'll be really, really big. It's I think we're going to see a heck of a lot of Teslas on the road, but I think when we really want to see the full electrification of cars and automation, it's not just going to be Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. So as far as like 10 years from now, what percentage of cars on the road are fully electric, do you think?
All right, well, let me ask you a question, though, okay? Because as we're moving more towards, like Uber just signed a deal with Volvo to buy something like 42,000 of their automated electric cars, right? Yeah. So you're going to say like what percentage, and I guess, you asked it in a fair way. We're going to figure out how do we answer it. The cars on the road, because, when I go stand, 8 p.m. out on Burbank, the number of Uber cars that drive by is pretty high. And you go downtown LA, really, really high. Now, the number of cars in LA, that aren't Uber, 99%, but you would think half of all cars were Uber. So I think that in certain areas, certain times of day, I'm going to say the majority of cars in 10 years are going to be electric.
Wow.
In high density urban areas.
As far as like just sitting on a street corner, counting them as they go by.
Yeah.
I could see that. I think that's a really good point, too, when you think about which ones are being used, especially if 10 years from now, one of the ideas we talked on this show a while ago was the idea that you take your car to work and then you enter it into Uber mode and you just let it drive around on its own, picking up fares and taking them places and then dropping them off.
Well, and you think of like, if you go to electric and they have a pretty good, one of the things that Tesla sold with the Semi was, hey, we'll guarantee you like 7 cents a kilowatt, whatever, 7 cents. So if you're a trucking company, you can predict, you can have a spreadsheet that will tell you exactly what you're going to save right now by doing that. If you start moving one to electrification, you're probably going to see in certain, depends on what regions you're in, but you could see a 20-30% reduction in your cost per mile or more. I'm just pulling that figure out of nowhere. But you could see an automatic cost and reduction in mileage for those cars, which means that your Uber and using fleet, the ride sharing drops tremendously. Once we get to automation, which I do think within 10 years, yes, we will see this in certain areas and stuff, your cost per mile drop dramatically. And it's that, I'm at the point now where sometimes I'm like, I'll go take an Uber downtown Burbank because I don't want to worry about parking. And there'll be parking there, but I don't want to drive around a parking garage for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I think that increases as those costs fall. It's just, the fewer cars we have that are capable of doing that get used much more, as you're pointing out.
Justin, now that you've gotten rid of your car and embraced the Uberification of your transportation, how's it been now that you've had a week or two to live with it?
I've actually been doing it for the past couple months just to see whether or not like what the money difference was and what it was like to try to use my car as little as possible. And so it's really not that much of a change from how it has been. But ultimately, really, the big news is that there's really no news. Like, it's just really easy and really cheap to get around in ride sharing through any of the various different means or public transportation. It's a lot. The thing that I've noticed the most is having the phantom limb. Ah, crap. Do I got to move my car? Oh, wait, I don't have a car anymore. Okay.
That's awesome.
Been moved for you.
Yeah.
Do we want to jump into picks, or do we have time for Journey Quest? What's our schedule like here?
I think we have time. We were at a bit of a cliffhanger. We were about to see someone's face.
I know.
I feel like let's jump in. Let's jump in. Let's do some Journey Quest.
All right.
Unless this is the DM's out because he forgot to write.
Oh no!
Okay.
Oh no! It's
Right.
it's shut your
All
mouth.
right, then let's go. Let's go then. Let's go ahead and get into Journey Quest.
Previously on
Journey Quest. Master plan came to full fruition, huh? You have me shoot off your ding dong so you can get a 2-foot.
But there's only one catch. You have to kill my champion. And he raises his visor. Mind controlled Justin Roberts Young.
I just cut out his vocal cords. Yeah, so I guess I murdered the fake Justin because I wanted to simplify things, and it seems like trapped under the mind control serum is actual Justin. How many combatants was I up against?
So the curtain rolled up. You saw mind controlled Justin, right? You're supposed to fight. Then the Golden Emperor's like, wait for the surprise. Wait for the twist. He's giggling. Curtain raises, and you see some more, Gene Simmons edition boots there, right?
Yeah.
Raising. You're like, look a little like Bryce boots. I'm just saying. But you're like, what's going on here? A little bit more, and then you see they're like made of like metal studs, right? And they've got big brassy buckles, a little bit higher, knee pads with spikes coming out. Like, that can't be really comfortable to put on, right? Then, like, the quads, like, I mean, these thighs are like really, really muscular, right? And then I'm gonna say the cod piece is a little bit comedically large, like a little bit, not just airy, it's bulbous, and it's really kind of like, okay. Then you get up to like
I love the fact that right when you got to the cod piece, as if rolling his eyes, Bryce types in the chat, well, again, it's me, I'm sure.
Well, no, I'm asking. Is this, Andrew describes so many characters that I think, is this me? Is he put me in this again?
So now we get to this big belt buckle, right? And there's a logo on there, and I don't want to. It's hard for you to understand. You can't quite see it from here, right? So I won't even get into it. But it's sort of the stylized diamond. It's a little blinding. You try to look at the logo, then you see like a 6-pack, like a super muscular 6-pack, right? And you're like, is that latex? Is that really a latex? And a half shirt, kind of like a guy, junior high school football player kind of guy would work back in the 1980s sort of thing,
Jesus Christ, Chuck Tingle, get to the point.
All right. Then metal plating, like big metal chest metal plating, right? Nipples, a little bit weird, metal nipples, a little weird, a little bit Joel Schumacher there. Like, is that really necessary? Okay. Shoulder pads, big shoulder pads, just like plate metal barbed wire shoulder pads. Okay. And it's dark around the face, dark around this area, right? And you see what looks like a large helmet, right? And the Golden was like, now I present to you your challengers. It's 2 heads.
What?
It's Justin and Brian. Clone Justin, clone Brian, sewn onto one giant warrior.
Okay. I say, Justin. I jump up so that I'm.
Wait. Are you clone Brian? Are you 2-headed clone Brian? Justin, Joe Bry?
No. It's this is this is me, Brian. Actual Brian. jumping up to mind controlled, also actual Justin. I jump up to him and I look at him. I grab him by the robot lapels he has, and I shake him a little bit, and I look him in the eye, and I kind of slap him on the face. And I was like, "Come on, man! I need you here. I need you to fight."
I think I remember, or I'm trying to blink to Brian that there are tubes. I'm trying to twitch because there's apparently tubes with mind control serum.
Yeah, I reached
Meanwhile,
forward.
two-headed Jubrai, I guess Justin Bry.
Jubrai. I like Jubrai.
Let's not. Let's stay away. from
Veto,
that,
veto.
Considering some of the other predilections that we've had in terms of recurring
Bryju? Is Bryju work for
No,
you?
Jubri.
Jubri's fine.
Jubri? What is Jubri doing?
Man, I don't
Are
know.
we controlling Jubri?
Doi, evil clone versions of yourself that have been welded onto one body.
Wait, okay. I yank out the mind control fluid. I just grab it. I just yank it right out.
It splashes in your mouth. It tastes really weird.
Yeah. I resist
And you
any.
feel like you'll do anything at that moment.
I resist any of that. I kind of shake Justin and I say, "Look, I think we could control Jubri over here." And I show by attempting to raise my right arm. But I don't know if I can yet. So, how does it work?
Did you raise your right arm?
Well, I did. I raised my right arm.
He
Well,
wants to know if
congratulations, you
Brian,
raised your right arm. The 3 months of therapy of work. Maybe you can squeeze a ball next. Are you proud of yourself?
All right, wait. Let me just get clarification. So we as players can control Jubri, but our characters cannot. They do not know that they can control Jubri.
Exactly. Jubri is his own two-headed entity that thinks like you guys.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna say, Jubri. If I guess we can only control Jubri if we both work together.
I think Jubri wants to help us.
Yeah, Jubri.
No, Jubri wants to destroy, kill.
Okay, well, this puts us in a very hard
Yeah,
position
it's hard
to play the game if we're supposed to also be our villain.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jubri combined both Brian and Justin's insecurities and falls down. And
Let's
starts
have
crying.
another cocktail party with Hitler. Okay.
All right. So Jubri comes barreling towards us, and I imagine that at this point, I'm just trying to see if Justin is out of his fog yet.
Yeah,
Did it
am I
help?
out of my fog yet?
You're getting out of your fog. Now I'm gonna say that you hear the Golden Emperor cackling. Ha ha! They only knew his weakness. Those two like to argue over everything.
That's a good point, actually. Jubri. I shout at Jubri, and I said, "Oh, so you found the weasel, did you? He was talking bad about how doughy you were." Brian, he said that no amount of working out will ever get you back to how you looked in your 30s.
Then clearing from my fog, I yell at Jubri. Yeah, and remember that thing you said? Everybody took it personal, and now they hate you. They've harbored this grudge for years.
Jubri pauses. Jubri 1 and Jubri 2 sort of stare at each other. There's a flicker in Jubri Bry's face of just this kind of looking down, and he sees the six-pack, and he's thinking like, this is great. While Jubri Justin...
seeing his glance, I shout, those are fake and you know it! In your heart, you know you're doughy and schlubby under there!
Jubri Justin sort of is stopping and looking off into the distance, a little bit morose, distant. Won't tell you what's going on, but you know there's something going on there.
Yeah, he's hiding his contempt right next to you. He secretly hates and resents every fiber of your being.
And then I shout out, attempting to sow discord, a fight between them. I say, you see that garage door over there behind me? Inside are bikes. So many bikes. You can ride all the bikes you want.
Jubri Bry looks towards the bikes and turns towards Jubry Justin says, "I told you so! I told you so!"
And then I shout, this is a good idea from the Ghost of Bryce. I shout, "You can ride the bikes to the space elevator. We saw it on our way in. It's majestic."
And then I yell, "I told you he's still harboring it. He remembers everything, and it's all your fault."
Okay, at this point, I hop on Robot Mech because Justin's a good 15, 20 feet tall
Yeah,
in
he's
this
got
getup.
enhancements and stuff.
Okay, so I hop up on his shoulders and I grab with the left hand, with the right hand I hold up my chainsaw, and I was like, now while they're distracted, we strike.
And then I say, "Brian, there's only one way we can defeat them while they're distracted. I know this is going to sound weird, but I need you to grab around my thigh because we're going to do a somersault into a butt chainsaw right through the both of them."
That's so outrageous. It just might work. I immediately drop down to his thigh. I rev the chainsaw.
Jubry Justin goes, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." Jubry Brian goes, "You're just copying the butt gun. That's just the same thing."
I said, point of fact, this Justin had an original thought because he wasn't even there for the butt gun. And then now strike.
Yeah, and so then I with my enhancements, I do a full Boston Dynamics robot somersault.
Jubby Brian turns with his one hand, looks up at the Golden Emperor like, "Is this even allowed?"
I very quickly, as we do the backflip jump, I leap out of Justin's butt. And just I'm doing the what was the Cannibal Express, or what was the thing where Colossus would throw Logan at people? I do that.
Yeah, and so Brian goes flying out as the somersault hits the absolute peak and comes in at tremendous velocity with his chainsaw hand right into the heart of Jubry.
Chainsaw digs into chest, digs into leather, digs into the metal, starts spewing, and all of a sudden there's blood. It's everywhere. It's horrific. And then you feel the chainsaw just cut right into a heart.
Ooh! I offer a warrior's cry of triumph, and I try to lift the chainsaw to split his chest asunder.
So you split up on the chest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now Jubry Justin's going like that, and Jubby Bry's like, bro, dude, why? Why?
And then I punch. Now landed. I punch Jubry Brian right in the face and say, "That's for that episode with Corey and Martin."
I swallow down my tinge of regret hearing him live out that fantasy, and instead I just cut off Jubry Justin's head.
Goes rolling across the floor and into the crowd. Turns out there are people in orchestra seats. Now they pick up the head,
crowd's
they start throwing it around the arena.
And so I turn and throw my arms up in triumph as I stand on Justin's shoulder.
And I just do a 2 animation move like the Final Fantasy winter music is playing.
And then I say, you want to get out of here, Justin?
And I say, Brian, I was hoping you'd say that because I have no idea what's happening. But we need to leave.
Okay,
this place is weird.
Assuming the door is still open where Jubry emerged from, I gesture towards it and I say, as fast as you can, Justin, because I assume it's faster for me to just ride on Justin's shoulder.
Also, can I actually ask the DM what? Can I get a little background on what I remember between the last time that the real me was seen and where I am now?
You remember going into the jungle and then maybe feeling a dart and then sort of something, maybe some sort of experiment, some medical stuff going on. But that's kind of, people asking to fill out a lot of forms, asking what your HMO was.
Okay, so I don't know much about the Golden Emperor or
No.
where I am or anything like that.
No, you're dumb.
Okay, then I say I don't know where we are, Bri, but it's scary. Let's leave.
Let's good. And I go, yeah, as if you're my steed. But then I whisper under my breath, but we are equal partners. And then I point.
So you charge to the backstage
all right, but
area.
aside from the troubling Animal Farm-esque analogies here, I decide to continue as your beast of burden.
You charge to the back area there, and there's like a menagerie of animals. Like there is a rhino with a chainsaw horn, right? They call it a brino. In honor of you. And there's a guy with the standing next to the cage watching you guys make your escape. He's like, "Oh, sorry, brino, you're not gonna get your match." There's an elephant with an electrified trunk, which is really kind of cool. A bunch of chimpanzees, not geared chimpanzees, but they're a bunch of chimpanzees with Wolverine claws, but like 4 instead of 3, so we're not sued. And they're really cut up too. They've actually cut themselves up quite a bit. It's not the best idea. It sounded like a cool idea, but it really, really wasn't.
They didn't so much have the healing factor, so they just start bleeding all the time.
Yeah, they're kind of like, and then you see a doorway down a corridor. You go run through there, then you burst out into.
Wait a minute. Hold on, wait a minute. Before we do that, I stop, and I tell Brian, I don't know who these sons of bees that did this to me were, but I think it's time that they all pay. What do you say we let loose all these animals into that crowd?
Yes, I scan for a big red button that presumably will open up all the gates at once.
Some guy eating a big hoagie sandwich stands next to a button and says, "No, not this button. You're not allowed to press this button."
I
say, "Pound sand, dweeb," and I punch him right in the face. Brian, hit the button.
I hit the button, and then after the doors open, I cut the cord so it can't be they can't be closed again.
Cool. Did you punch him in the balls too? Just you can't get...
Yes, that too.
What about a sandwich? Are you going to take a sandwich too?
What kind of sandwich is it? Does it have mayonnaise on it?
That was my same question.
No mayonnaise. No mayonnaise. Some Dijon, but no mayonnaise. It's a big capicola. Big, warm capicola.
Yellow mustard or bust. I'll leave it on the ground.
Okay.
So you you run through a corridor, you burst into the arena lobby, and what do you see? Merchandising stalls going on for half a mile.
Oh my God!
What's there? You see the what do we call them?
Giant foam fingers.
No,
giant
Brian.
foam fingers. Only it's a chainsaw instead of a finger, and it
Oh
says
yes, there's that. There's that.
Jumpy was the monster.
The Bry what?
Jubry.
Jubry. There's like a bunch of Jubry, but some guys are already packing this stuff away and putting send to El Salvador.
They're screen printing instead of Super Bowl champ. It says Western Division champ. Jubry.
Yeah, and there's a stall with Brian Chainsaw Warrior, and it's you.
Awesome.
The yellow shirts. Yeah. Tiny stall.
I grab some shirts with my face.
Yeah, they're just like in girls' small size, but
no, that's great. That's great. I put one on awkwardly, and so like my guts kind of hanging out.
All right. Oh, so you're looking for the Justin stall. There's you're looking for that, and finally there's like the mind control Justin t-shirts.
Does it say mind control Justin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's mind control Justin. Yeah.
I just imagine it's like the most unflattering blank, like just.
Oh yeah. It's just sort of like you're half drooling. You're like.
Just like drooling.
I gesture to the front gate, figuring that we gotta make tracks and get out of here fast.
So you head towards the door. Security is like, we're gonna get out of your way. we're not even paid enough for this, right? But you hear footsteps behind you.
Uh-huh.
Wait.
I glance over my shoulder and assess the situation.
Short guy, maybe about 5'4", 5'5", whatever. Okay, wearing a suit,
Yeah.
holding a contract.
Okay. I say, stop. Let me see that. I grab the paper and I scan real quick. First of all, is it signed?
No, not signed. He's holding up a pen.
Oh, you want to sign? I look over the terms and conditions, mainly concerned about exclusivity and whether or not existing projects.
Before, all right, hey, team meeting, very quick team meeting here. These people enslaved us and forced us to fight. I don't really think that I know that you have already signed deals for television projects, and that seems very dangerous and low reward. But like, let me just say, this might be beyond the pale. I think we need to GTFO.
Whoa! I'm not with the Golden Emperor, okay?
Okay, who are you?
I'm an agent.
Okay, agent. What do you represent?
I represent champions, winners, the best. That's who I represent.
All right. Do you have any kind of deals that involve us not participating or fighting for our lives anymore?
Everything's got its risk. We could do the post-apocalyptic wrestling league. You know, that's pretty good. You know, the death matches are kind of rare there. If you want to do the wasteland circuit, we could do that. That sounds pretty cool. You know, I think we get a couple matches, 4 or 5 in there, then we set you up for a pay-per-view, and you're good for life.
All right. Justin, this does sound very
this?
generous. This sounds like a good deal.
Since we previously found out that we are not in an alternate dimension, that we are indeed just still in the regular dimension, and we have gone on this wild.
So, yeah, this is East Texas, don't you know?
Yeah, we have really not gone far since we left. How fast can you get us to Los Angeles and San Francisco?
How fast can you kill a gorilla with, ready for this?
Yeah.
A gorilla with an adorable kitten controlling it.
Ooh, that's pretty good. Quick question. In the contract, do they have replacement ding-dongs? This hose situation's not really working for me.
I know a guy that will set you up with one you won't. Amazing.
Justin, come on.
He unzips his trousers, drops it down, and you're like, that looks perfectly normal. You're like, exactly.
All right. It's a fast side quest, Justin, right? I mean, it's like
he says like you'd never guess, but, and then he pairs it to his iPhone by squeezing the boom.
And then he's like, check this out. He reaches into his jacket. He pulls out a slip of paper, and it's a totally original idea, not something I just stole from Bryce. He says, how about this? Pan-American, post-apocalyptic, after the nuclear meltdown, apocalypse. We said that again. Rumble Royale, not the Royal Rumble. Rumble Royale.
with cheese.
Jeez. Being held in Oakland, California.
Justin, we go on the road. We do this gig. We get to Oakland. I get a replacement.
I know that this journey has taken a lot of lefts and rights, but the entire goal here is to get to Los Angeles to make sure that our co-host Andrew Main is still alive.
With the live pre-show in Los Angeles, and then he reaches into his jacket and he pulls out a brochure. And what is this? This is the tour bus. It's not just any tour bus. It's a tour bus with gun turrets, razor wire, all sorts of things you can imagine. And what's that on the back? He's like, check this out. A bike rack.
Oh, Justin. All we got to do is fight just a little bit on the road. This really seems like win-win-win. Mainly for me, because I get a ding-dong.
Brian, check the contract to make sure that side projects are still available.
Okay, All right. I look at the contract, and assuming everything checks out, I scribble my name with my good left
Hold
hand.
on, ask him if everything checks out. Does everything check out?
Everything checks out. Okay.
Oh, good. Then I press my thumb, putting my thumbprint on there, and I cut my stuff and bleed a little bit on there and get some DNA in there just to make sure.
Cool. Justin?
I
Man, you just woke up from a mind control slumber.
And I'm going to tell you, you're a little bit hungry, and there's a
first thing-
snack bar over there, and you don't have any money. And he's like, by the way, there's $1 million signing bonus.
I mean, it just seems like there's nothing.
all right. I sign the contract.
Wonderful. He's a great gentleman. Pulls out a briefcase. Here's your $1 million signing bonus.
Oh, awesome. I say I look for a compartment to put the money in Robo-Mech Justin.
Fantastic. You pull those bills out. They're beautiful. They're green. And you're like, great. We now own 1 million Bryce bucks.
Oh, okay, we work.
Gentlemen, first fight. Bryce Vegas.
Oh, all right.
At least we're heading west.
All right. It's getting us somewhere
New
on the
Bryce Vegas, Oklahoma.
Oh, God damn it. Still, I mean, northwest,
You're
maybe,
north.
depending on where we are.
way. I turn to the camera and say, "It's a living," as it fades into a tiny black
It's like-
circle.
And your Marty Johnson McPhee, your agent, says, man, you guys are stars already. You're already playing to the documentary crew, which is shooting this for the reality TV show that we're making about this too.
All right. So I guess we head out to Vegas.
Then I immediately look at the camera crew and say, do we want to run that back? Do it again? Did you guys get all the coverage?
Back
you
to
needed?
one. You want safety?
You want to go back to one?
Next time on Journey Quest.
We see whether or not they need to go back to one.
Picks.
Yeah, I got a pick. I just read a book and I loved it. I loved it a lot. I didn't expect to be so enamored with the world, but C. Robert Cargill's Sea of Rust is fantastic.
cool.
It's great. It takes place, after robots, killed all the humans. Like, that definitely happened. But now they've got bigger problems because some of the robots are giant mainframes that figure out, instead of all these millions and millions of independent humanoid, independently thinking robots, what if they were all just me? And then they all started fighting with each other. The mainframes are fighting with each other. The little robots are caught in the crossfire, and adventures ensue. It's great. I really enjoyed it. It was an easy 10-hour read on Audible, and I liked it very, very much. It's well performed as well.
Excellent, Justin.
I got an Audible book as well. Donna Brazil, who ran the DNC during the embattled campaign of Hillary Clinton in 2016, wrote a book. It is at its best in the first half when it is focused on the interaction between her campaign or her leadership of the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. You are reminded as you continue to go further that Donna Brazil is a lifelong political activist, and a fair amount of it is, I think, her making sure that her draft of history kind of gets written. Well, on both sides of the aisle, I guess. But it is specifically through the first half what you want for political junkies like me, raw first-person perspective on the boiler room moments of a high-stakes campaign, which I love. So, and she performs the audiobook, which is great because she is from New Orleans and has a very distinctive voice. But it's pretty good. So I liked it.
Excellent. So I've been working on a software project, which means when I do that, I spend a lot of time sitting in front of my computer and I'm able to sort of be passively entertained by something. And my pick last week was, I think, Adventures in Space and Time, which was about, Verity Lambert and the creation of the show Doctor Who. And I said, you know what? I've never watched the really, really old episodes like the John Hartnell ones. And I had the BritBox subscription. Said, you know what? Why don't I go start there? So I started watching from episode 1 of Doctor Who forward, and I'm like 30 episodes in or something because it's just sort of playing in the background. But again, I'm not like, it's not like if I were just watching them without doing something else, it might be a little bit harder to watch. But it's, I really like the fact that it's, this is 1963. This is pre-Star Trek, pre-anything. This is like our first kind of like one of the first earliest episodic sci-fi shows exploring space, etc., and working with very limited resources to do that, and pretty, pretty impressed for what they're able to do, and how they try to make these stories work, visiting these different civilizations, dealing with different problems and stuff. And I kind of, I was, I've been enjoying it.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyhow, gentlemen, it's been weird.
I'm really
Back
excited.
on.
I'm really excited about our new adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's gonna go sideways.
No, I'm sure it'll go great.
At least we're making it for the first time ever. We're making it out of Texas. We've been doing Journey Quest for how long? It's over a year, right?
Yeah. Well, and also like a lot of fun geography has changed in Texas, from forests to canyons to.
Yes, it's gotten a lot more interesting.
Yeah. Short break, and then we'll get into after things.
Yeah, that works
Wait.
for me.
Well,
Okay. There we go. There we go. Hi, everybody. I got.
Sorry for the audio pickup. I know that's a real putter. Just know it's
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if it's just old wires dying, old cables dying. But I don't know. Oh? It should be. The physical space would be the only issue I can see. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Between Things. I got Splatoon 2 yesterday afternoon or in the morning. That's a great game. That's a very good game. And it's so weird because I had Splatoon on the Wii U. If you don't know, it's Nintendo's third-person online shooter game where instead of going up and like racking up kills and points and stuff, you try to shoot the ground and you cover the ground with your team's color of ink. And whoever at the end of the 3-minute round has the most ink on the ground, their team wins. I forgot how much I really liked that first game. And Splatoon 2 has a lot more maps, has most of the old maps from the other game. The maps change twice as fast. I don't know. It was really nice, and I had this really. I don't like playing online games mostly because I don't like playing with other people. But I had a really good time, just like having Discord open, and Sunbun and I were playing, and so just like between matches we would just like send text messages to each other about how shitty that match was, or whoever team won or lost, whatever. But it was so weird because like I think for a lot of people that is like a fraction of how they're like a fraction of like the magic of an online game is for people most of the time.
Yeah.
Because people get on voice call, they'll strategize and stuff, but just that little thing of like, oh yeah, we're playing, and I can have someone to bounce comments off of immediately was really fun. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's kind of crazy how much the Switch has just sort of been like the talk of that entire community in a way that I don't know if people were kind of ready for it to sort of like be as big of a player as it is.
Yeah. I think between between Nintendo coming out and saying, "Hey, we're gonna do a paid online service," and them having spent the previous year and a half ignoring the Wii U. It was really easy. I was super skeptical, when it came out, because I was like, I'll just get Zelda on the Wii U and I'll just wait, because there probably won't be any games on it for a while anyway. And hey, spoiler alert, there aren't. But I am enjoying it. I've actually been looking into. So I usually play it. I don't know how you tend to play it, Justin. Whether you do it on the TV or in handheld. Like, I find that I use the handheld mode a lot, and then I'll watch YouTube on the TV.
Oh, really?
Kind of do the same, two things at the same time. But the way that those like Joy-Cons, the little Joy-Cons are, there's no they're really bad ergonomics, and it's the kind of
I wound up just kind of plugging it in, but then also like we Ash and I were starting to get into like Mario Kart and stuff like that, so we just got two pro controllers and.
Oh, cool. They make Hori and a bunch of other manufacturers now make these like.
I thought like when they did the unveil for the Switch, because there was that speculation like, should Nintendo get out of hardware? Should they get out of hardware? Because there was like, how do you compete with the iPhone? How do you compete with consoles? And part of what was always made Nintendo was sort of kind of, they get criticized for it. Nintendo's kind of clever is they're okay not having the biggest GPUs. They're okay being a little bit behind in some of that stuff. And it was so brilliant, the idea of we're going to make a portable console. In that hardware solution alone, I thought was such a clever thing, because it was like, succeeding where like the Wii U was sort of not. It was, in the age of Wii U came out, remember, kind of like as iPad started coming in, all this Android tablets and stuff, and to have a Wii U in the age of that was like, it looked behind the times. But I just very clever, I was, as a bystander.
And I think you've kind of seen two things with mobile gaming, with like iOS and Android games, where the biggest successes have kind of become super gimmicky, addictive games.
Mm-hmm.
There has yet to be kind of like a super fulfilling kind of AAA title experience on iOS or Android in a way that I think a lot of people sort of hoped there would be, and it hasn't really broken onto the television in a satisfying way, in the way that the Switch can easily. It's just as effective as a television console as it is a mobile one, and you can't really say that about any of the Apple or Android solutions for those games.
What I was mentioning earlier is so Hori makes these silicone covers for the Joy-Con.
Yeah.
And they only cover the outer edge or the outer sides of it, so the rails are unobstructed, so you can still slot them into the actual screen. But they add an extra like rounded edge to the back, so that it seems, at least I haven't gotten it yet, seems a little more ergonomically comfortable. Because that's the only thing is like, if I play it for an hour and a half or 2 hours, I really feel it in my hands, and I'm just like, "Argh." But
yeah, no, it's I don't know. I'm glad I bought it, because and I think it's probably I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I bought the console that turns out to be like a huge thing that everybody's excited about, when it's probably not a coincidence that I bought one because it was good enough that it appealed to non-gamers like myself.
Yeah, I think that's going to be
hovered on that Amazon buy button so many times.
I think
and that is saying something. If Andrew is close to buying a dedicated video game console, like that is literally the greatest thing that you could try and do.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have that be our family present today, or this Christmas. Pretty
Sweet.
stoked.
cool.
All right, we all ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, we are. Take it away.
Welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, if you were hoping for the two-headed monstrosity, Jubri, sorry, you get this two-headed monstrosity with two-headed and two-bodied monstrosity.
Well, speaking of monstrosities, Justin Robert Young. Hey, it's me. Gentlemen, I don't know if you heard this, but Kickstarter had a little bit of a announcement they made. And let me get the...
I've not heard this.
Oh, no. It's, as they say in the industry, you want to be on the lookout for the drip, drip, drip stories.
So, Kickstarter is launching its own version of Patreon.
Huh.
Drip. Justin, you want to explain this?
Well, I'll tell you what. I actually have not kind of gone in depth with it, but from what I know, this is a service that existed before that they acquired. They did not change the name, which I think might ultimately be a mistake. But effectively, look, Patreon has changed a lot. In terms of how people make money, and Kickstarter was obviously the closest comp to it. It makes sense for them to get into it. I think that it is better for the landscape for there to be more ways to monetize your audience that are not your platform, as many people on YouTube and I'm sure Twitch and stuff are not going to be immune to hard business decisions being made. But this will provide integration. If you launch a Kickstarter and then you want to fund it in a way that isn't a Kickstarter, then you can go ahead and do that. But I don't know if there's anything else that I'm missing here that differentiates it from Patreon.
One of the things that they were talking about as a differentiating feature was being able to export your drip data, because Kickstarter is set up as one of those public benefits companies, so that part of their action is that they can do things that are good for the culture rather than just benefactors or their investors. And so I think a big part that they're trying to sell is that you can take this data elsewhere.
So, yeah, thank you for that. That's Bryce Castillo, by the way, is actually the fourth member and the most important one of After Things and Weird Things. I like it's funny because I know I'm getting old when you click through on some of these very social media engaged sort of stuff, and they show creative, youthful people doing stuff. And I go to Drip and a new tool for creators by Kickstarters, and you see a photo of people that is this a new X-Men team?
Yeah, it does look like an X-Men team.
I know I'm old when.
Okay. Is this a Die Antwood, the next generation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I'm out of touch. But it's a very, very exciting time. And I was thinking about kind of our theme is, we've been at the Justin and I have been podcasting for 11 years. 11 years now, right?
Wow.
Since we started our first podcast. Brian's been in it. How long have you been doing Scam School, Brian?
Scam School, I had the idea and started pitching 10 years ago this month. I think 10 years ago at this moment, I was planning, I was getting ready to come shoot the pilot.
But even then, before that, for BB on the road, right?
Yeah. I guess Brian Brushwood on the road was 11 years. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, 2006.
I think, we're used to the idea now that sometimes some ideas aren't necessarily radically, oh my God, that's a brilliant new idea. It's the implementation. Certain kinds of technology make it easier to implement. Uber is a fascinating company. Uber is worth something like $60 billion. There is nothing really inherent about Uber that could not have existed 10 years before Uber came out. You could have had in 1996, short text, your address, the street address of where you're at, whatever, and we'll come pick you up or something. There could have been a version of that. And there are things that just made it more possible. Cell phones in the hands of all the drivers, GPS stuff, all these sort of things that sort of all came together. Crowdfunding, things like this. In the 90s, there was a lot of talk about the idea of escrow-based funding for stuff. This was something I talked about because the idea of we're still going to see forms of this. There is going to be a new Star Wars film. I don't know if you guys heard. And it's like, all you have to tell me is new Marvel movie. And I'm like, great, I'll pay my money now. Don't tell me anything about it. I don't care. I'm there. You know, if I go to 2 in a row that suck, then I won't be there, but I'm not worried about that. And that opens up the idea of, like thinking like, where are we going to be 10 years from now in crowdfunding and creator funding? I think that we're already seeing, like, you take Brian is a production company. Brian really is a production company. You produce multiple shows. Mm-hmm. You have your own branding. You have your own advertising, et cetera, things like this. What we need, in my opinion, are tools or frameworks to be able to say, this is really what you do and how you function. To say like, okay, is there a tool that can make it easier to do subscription-based sort of content for you or whatever? Are there ways in which you can make it easier for people to say, oh yeah, I want to pay X amount of dollars a month for this, like Patreon does, but different or for bigger scale stuff? And I think that we're going to evolve towards there. I don't think anybody really knows what that should be because we don't quite know enough about how people behave, but I'm excited to see that Kickstarter's taking this seriously because this is the direction we're going into. And if there were better tools out there, we would get there faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the, there's a weird kind of blowback. We did a Monorogue update video where we tried to do full transparency. We broke down all the numbers, both in the amount of footage that we've shot, where it's allocated, what types of episodes we made, how much money we've taken in, and how much of that is Patreon's cut. And I was really surprised by the number of comments from people who were just mad that Patreon got 5%. They were just irrationally angry about that thought. And I was like, well, understand they have an ecosystem, a marketplace. They have fantastic cross-promotional tools. They bring us discovery. They make it easy. They provide us service. And I think a 5% fee is eminently reasonable for it. But I don't know. Do you think that people are going to stay that ignorant, for lack of a better word? Or do you think...
Yes.
Really?
I mean, the dude, it's credit card fees. I mean, there's just an element of how money gets moved that people fundamentally don't understand or don't want to understand.
You have, we see an example of this in the box office. And, I read this post about, Tom Green explaining why Freddy Got Fingered was actually a box office success. And he's like, it made 18 million and the budget was 18 million. It's like, okay, what was the studio's cut? What was this cut? And even people inside the business that look at these numbers, then you look at like now where everybody's studying, Justice League because, this is, the same studio that gave us, Wonder Woman, an amazing, really, really fun film. We get Justice League, which opens lower than the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And but you hear be like, I made $94 million. It's like, it's not what the studio gets, and add in what the studio gets something like half of that. And then internationally, like, made it back international. Like, no, it gets a 25% to 30%. We've been around this for years and people still don't understand, how that works,
Yeah. I think it's, so back to kind of the big picture. I love the fact that they are introducing another competitor in this space. I love the fact that it's normalizing this as an idea. Kickstarter sounded outrageous at the time it first busted on the scene.
E-begging.
Yeah, exactly, right. And yet, look at how many really great projects have come as a result of the Kickstarter dynamic. And same thing with Patreon. I think more people are accustomed to the idea of being middle-class patrons. It's like it used to be, you had to be the richest of the rich to announce loudly, I like this art, I want to make it happen. And now that's no longer the case. Now anyone can come get that confidence. The jokester in me wants to call it the smug superiority, but it's more than that. It's like, you get an emotional benefit when you become a patron of something, and the more different takes that we see. Do we know how Drip really differs from patronage on Patreon?
Not a clue.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the cut difference is.
Right now it's invite only, and so only like a handful of creators who have made Kickstarters in the past, super successful ones, have access to Drip.
Yeah.
They have to do that kind of slow roll. The key is to do that rollout in a way that doesn't annoy people. Like, I'm aware of another company that's doing kind of their own influencer rollout, and it's the most offensive thing in the world if you're not, cool enough to be that, and that's, you get into these sort of, I deal with, if we talk, we as being people who do things online, the internet, in front of other people, we get approached by people all the time, and there's this amazing kiss ass sort of industry of people who approach you because, oh, you're an influencer and stuff, and it's like, it's, I don't know. It is literally, we could do a whole nother episode about that, about how, yeah, if you have a certain number of Twitter followers and you complain about something, yeah, you will get treated better than when you didn't have that many Twitter followers. And this, not a lot of people complain about that.
A friend of mine is getting ready to release his book. Nate Staniforth, you were kind enough to give a very generous quote praising Nate's work, and we love his stuff. It's been amazing to watch him agonize over writing his book, and trust me, you're going to hear me talk a lot about it over the next 2 months. But he's got a January release, and he's very in tune with the idea that there is a number, there is a specific target number that if you hit that number, the odds are very good that you will show up on the New York Times bestseller list. And as he's going in to promote, he's hitting up a bunch of people for quotes and that stuff. But as we have been planning how to promote his book on the Scam School channel and help get the word out on it, there's this dawning realization that he said, wow, it seems like, how good the book actually is way less important than the currency of attention. Like, that's the most valuable thing you can have, is the attention of other people. And I brought up to him the Tim Wu book, The Attention Merchants, which, that's the whole thesis about that as well. And I think it really does speak to the power of platforms, and no matter what you're doing, to have some ability to reach people so that, when you have your billion-dollar idea, you can at least get the avalanche started. You can get the snowball beginning.
I fundamentally believe that the quality of your project is always most reflected on the next project, like not that project. So if you are selling that book, then sure. I mean, for it to have a long tail because a book's something that is going to come out immediately after they buy it, and people are going to be able to read it really fast, and they're going to be able to rate it at a certain speed, then absolutely. But in general, I think that your real value of putting the effort and quality into it is going to be when you do something again, and now you have that reputation where that brush fire is able to spread that much faster because people are primed.
We're definitely seeing that with this year's the puzzle box that we're doing this year. We did a red variant on the Outlaws deck of cards, and then the puzzle box we did is one called the Outlaws Vault. And I have been on pins and needles because the one thing I can't know is how it will be received by people who want to enjoy it. And I knew that this was the most challenging puzzle box we've done, but I didn't know if that would be something that would make people happy or not. And the first 144 have gone out, and only now am I seeing on Twitter, the joy of successfully opening it, as people send me pictures of their challenge coins and talk about, how much they enjoyed the difficulty of it. It's terrifying to just be on pins and needles, not knowing how your thing's going to be received.
I'm going to add, though, to it, like, yes, having a big social media influence can help a book pop a New York Times bestseller list. But I would say the influence of that list has declined tremendously. It absolutely has value. It's declined tremendously. And one of the things that the publishing industry still doesn't quite grasp or understand is that I can have a book that is been out for the way the publishing industry works. There was this court case years ago, and what the court case basically had to do with this like machine tool and die company. It said that you can't, like, the way you had to handle, like, you had to depreciate your losses or whatever, and like you couldn't count them as like, lost profit or whatever. You had to depreciate the value, whatever. The short result was publishing companies are in a hurry to pulp whatever books they don't sell, right? They decided that after that, like, if we don't sell X number in the first 2 weeks or first 3 months, then we'll just get rid of all the other ones. And so you won't have these books around to buy anymore, meaning that you can't have, let's say there was a resurgence in one of your titles, you have to sell thousands in order for the publisher to go back and say, let's go do a reprint. They're not going to, if you're selling, 20 or 30 a week, they won't reprint that book, even if that means that over the course of a year, you're going to sell 1,000 or more copies of that book, which would be profitable. So the publishing industry got in this very funky way of doing things that made it very hard for things that weren't big hits initially to stick around and keep making revenue. Kindle and EPUB changed that. Now they changed that. So you take a book like I have, The Naturalist, okay? Or excuse me, The Naturalist comes out, and I have a big pop. That book does fantastic. It does amazing, etc. There may be a press announcement about that soon. We did officially announce, by the way, that there are 2 more books coming. That I'll be doing 2 more with my publisher on that. So that's series is continuing. And there's probably maybe another announcement we're waiting about.
Is that 2 more on top of the second one that was already announced?
Yeah, there'll be 4 books total so far. Yeah,
dude, that's great.
But Station Breaker, which is an indie book I published last year on my own, I've had slow but steady sales for that book consistently, right? Now, if we added all of the sales I've had of that book in its entirety, and we put that into the normal window at which, it's outsold your average published novel. It's outsold the average sci-fi novel that a publisher puts out there, but it's just been, 10 copies this week, 20 copies this week over time. And it's a different world. So they don't have a way to measure that. How do you measure? Like, I know what the total sales of that book are. And when I go to publishers, they'll say, hey, this book sold this many copies. They'll go, oh, there's been a continued interest for it because it's digital or it's on demand. And so I'd say that, to Nate's thing, like, yes, that initial pop helps. But if you have a book that's a good book that continues to get recommended and bought, you will see a year later, a couple years later, you'll see, man, I'm still making money from this book because it's still getting recommended by people. And it's still in the recommendation, algorithms. And so I'm just looking something up like, like I would have, had I done Station Breaker with a traditional publisher, I would have way out earned whatever advance they would have given me, but I keep all that profits myself. So we are in a different age. It's if you play the game your own way, you can do really well.
Yeah, well, and I think part of the reason that you're enjoying so much success is that you have a very heterogeneous approach to it. Some of your stuff is traditional publishing, some of it's indie, all ebook publishing. You've got properties, and I guess I'm in the same thing as well. In that, I guess both of us have done television projects that are owned by bigger entities, but then also. The independent projects like the Modern Rogue, I don't know, trying a bunch of different approaches seems to have worked pretty well for us.
Yeah, you've people get into this mindset, and we talk about this again, but it's worth harping on is, people say, oh, I just want to write. I want somebody else to handle this. Great.
Crush that mentality. Destroy that thought out of your mind. You do not get to play in a sandbox and be a beautiful artist that everybody comes and gawks and throws money at. That is a fairy tale, and it's damaging for you to believe that that's even a possibility.
And you will see occasionally, sometimes actors or artists who do get into that, oh, they have other people that handle everything. What happens? They overspend, outspend. They
gone. Who knew that he was quietly embezzling and spending this money on posters that his brother owns the print shop for and so on.
Yep. And what it comes down to is you say, oh, I don't want to have to worry about it. Fine. Then have a day job. Have a day job and create for fun. And yes, you get to do that. But if you say, I don't want to do the work, and that's what I hear, like, I don't want to do the work. I don't want to do the work. And you're like, well, that's nice to have a dream. And I've said this before, but the difference between Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and most everybody else is the day they became billionaires, they still showed up at work.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
The plan was, I'm making $1 billion and I exit. No, the plan was something bigger and more dramatic. So I think that I'm excited about where this is going, in that I think that if you have people who are putting out, quality stuff, we've seen opportunistic sort of things like, oh, we'll go to these YouTube celebrities, whatever, and we'll make a movie or we'll do this, whatever. And maybe they're trying to capitalize on, the idea they had an audience, not necessarily on the idea that they were doing really good stuff. But crowdfunding is exciting. I think we're going to start seeing, we've seen crowdfunded movie studios and other things like this that kind of had maybe that they weren't, most of those initiatives weren't led by people where we knew about the quality of their work. But I think that we're going to start, I mean, Kevin Smith has done some neat stuff with Red State, things like this. And I think that, I love to watch him speak. I'm not so much into where his films are now, but I think we're going to start seeing just more of that. Just, more, hard to describe, but like the idea of when you had a guy like, when we got like, was it Dr. Horrible and that kind of stuff. And I think we just need better tools and ways to put those things out there.
Yeah.
I think that, again, I cannot redline as important enough the idea of non-platform tied funding. YouTube announced last week that they were going to try to create non-advertising revenue streams for some of the people that are upset with how they've changed the monetization process. And effectively, to me, I mean, and I'd be curious your point of view on this, Brian, but like I read that as, this is the new normal for ad stuff, and there's no way that we're going to fix it, which I think for some people is kind of disheartening.
Yeah, well, luckily, as we built the Mono Rogue, we never leaned entirely on YouTube ad revenues, and as a result, we always treated it with suspicion. And don't get me wrong, it's an important leg of the platform that helps make it possible for us to, hit that level of production quality and timeliness. But it's always been a mixture of that and Patreon and occasional integrated ads, and then whatever. Now that we just launched the Mono Rogue store, that will help out as well. I had another thing I was going to say about it, but I've totally spaced on it.
I'm gonna throw something out here too. It's like, so my friend and I, we wanted to watch The Player, right? The Robert Altman movie starring Tim Robbins, and I could buy it for like $20. But then I look and there's like Filmstruck has the Criterion subscription for like $8 a month, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, $8, $8. I'll pay the $8, watch it, and if I find more content on there, I'll keep doing it. I subscribe to BritBox for like $6, $7, whatever, and I'm like, I'll just watch Red Dwarf, and you know what? I'll watch these Doctor Who, and if I'm paying $7, I'll do that. I've had other subscriptions that I paid for, like for watching like old MS-3K, and I've said this before. I think that would be a great evolution would be a standalone, separate from Patreon, rather than get dinged all at once for everything you subscribe to, is to have to separate and to parcel that out, because not all Patreon content is the same or whatever. I would love to see a model like that, because I have no trouble, like, if somebody said, hey, Andrew, would you want to buy the Schwood channel as a separate sort of $5 a month thing, and then it's pops up like, app, and there are people who've tried versions of this. I get that, but I would be really, really into that, like treating that like a discrete kind of product. Imagine if everything you bought on Amazon product wise, you got one big, huge bill at the month outside of your credit card bill, but like, you'd be like, oh, I've been spending way too much on Amazon. I can't do this, or even iTunes, and I like the idea of creating we'll let you do your own separate billing for your service, because that way people aren't getting sticker shock when they're like, I'm spending this much on Patreon.
Yeah. I don't know. That's one of the most delightful surprises to me has been the reaction to, you get sticker shock. You make promises, and then at the beginning of the month, it's Patreon day, and all of a sudden you get dinged for $50 of promises that you had made or whatever. And this has become a ritual where it's like, this is the time where I thank everyone on Twitter and talk about how you guys have changed my life, maybe because, made it possible for me to stop constantly touring on the road and all that stuff. And in return, the thing that makes me so happy is the responses are all universally like, oh, I love it. It's the day I feel like I'm doing a good thing for the arts. I feel like it's a two-way street. Obviously, the performer enjoys the benefit of being able to keep the lights on, but I think that there's a psychic benefit to the patrons who
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think there's a psychic benefit to the patrons who know that they are making a difference in their favorite art.
So I think, Andrew, your idea is great, and I would love it if every month there wasn't this like, all right, well, now let me see how much I love each and every one of these Patreon donations I'm doing so I can revise it down back to a number that I'm cool with. However, I do think that that idea can only really happen in a world post-Patreon when what the biggest important thing that Patreon did was establish it as a bank, like a financial institution that you don't care if you give them your credit card. You know that it has the brand of this is where you support people. You know when every podcast or YouTube that you say says, hey, support my Patreon, they don't need to go through the whole spiel of exactly what it is. That brand is so important that I would love, now that we are there, that we could kind of try some of the things that were, tried before. Maybe weren't as successful, which is like, yeah, no, here, piecemeal though. And like, maybe you get
my
this
channel.
bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you get this bill. Maybe it's like, oh no, of course I pay $10 for Jury, right? Or I pay, $5 for Modern Rogue. That's cool, of course. Yeah, it's just not like, oh my God, $100, Jesus.
Yeah, and I like the idea. I think that from a psychological point of view, because some things are radically different in the sort of services you provide. So if I'm supporting a comic book illustrator on Patreon, to lump that in with my podcast and everything else I support, whatever. It's just a thought that of like, oh, going to that sort of like, because then it allows you to create sort of different sort of products too that you do, but anyhow, I'm excited by where this is going though. I'm excited by where this is going, and you could see like, oh, we could do we're going to do Weird Things Films. What does that mean? Oh, well, $5 is going to give you access to all of our shows. Plus we're going to make, 2 or 3 feature films a year when we get to this level, and like, oh, studios, that's kind of a neat idea,
Yeah.
But anyhow, predictions for 2027.
Oh man, specifically in the landscape of crowdfunding.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it's one hand it sounds crazy to say that, but that's a shorter amount of time than we've been doing this podcasting and we've been doing this thing.
You know what? Here's something that does not exist, but I think will. And maybe it'll be a feature that Patreon starts doing or someone like that. But basically, I think we're going to become more comfortable with having our attention tracked. And so basically a service that says, hey, you know what you love. Just for $20 a month, we will watch how much you watch the things and watch what you clearly love more than other stuff. And we will apportion your $20 a month appropriately to all the creators of independent stuff that you watch. I think what we fear in Patreon is making a promise and getting stuck behind it because, once you get that credit card, you're like, well, I guess this is just going to be forever. And that's fine. But I would love if there was something that would help me be more judicious and nuanced where my donations went than the brute force attack of me trying to guess what future me will enjoy in the future. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to have to log in and manage and be thinking about how much do I love X, Y, or Z or whatever. I would love it if that could be outsourced by somebody just watching my viewing behavior and saying, clearly you dig this, so we've given the money appropriately.
Like an entity that says we're going to have a slate of content you're going to enjoy.
Yeah, we're describing a cable company, right? Yeah, I've kind of come back to seeing the benefits of a cable all-in-one subscription stuff. The all-you-can-eat buffet.
Cord killers. Either you die a hero or live long to see yourself become the villain.
Exactly, right?
Well, yeah, I think there is the problem we've long had in television is that, in broadcast television, it's not unlike Facebook or Google where we're the product. We're being sold to advertisers. When you're not paying for the content, then you're getting content that somebody else is paying for you to see, which is either to entertain you and get you to watch ads or to get you to do something. And that's the thing, the trade-off we have to realize is that when you use Facebook, there's a reason Facebook provides this amazing service for you for free, because that time you spend on there is very valuable to them because they can influence your decisions overtly and subtly, ways in which you don't think about. And when it comes to content stuff, like I love Netflix because I pay them a fee. They try to entertain me. They don't put ads. They try to entertain me. And if I don't like it, if there's enough stuff I just don't like, then I stop paying them.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty straight transaction versus anyhow. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I think that there is that curation and all that, is this curation to really try to do that. It's interesting. If you played around with the Apple's TV program, take a look at that, because what Apple's trying to do is the TV app and on the Apple TV and the iPhone is it will track the things that you watch through there that you're watching, and then it will make recommendations based on this. And it is whatever you have subscriptions to, it'll tell you like, oh, check this out. Here's a playlist for you. You might want to check this thing out over here or whatever. And it's really a clever thing that I think the problem is it's not obvious, and it's a little bit, kind of maybe not as implemented as well as it can. But I've had, a number of times I go in there and it's like, oh, we put together a playlist or whatever based upon these other shows you've watched. And if you're trying to find something, it'll tell you where you can watch this. And so anyhow, I have I'm enjoying that.
So what about you? You got a prediction for 2027?
My prediction is I think we're going to have better tools for creating. There's a lot of stuff that's just making this show happen is hard. And when I say it's hard, I mean Bryce has to do a lot of work.
We're not saying who it's hard for, but it's hard somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
And then periodically I'll look and I'll be like, oh, I didn't get an option payment or a publisher's payment when I want. And Brian gets a text message from me like, hey, Bri, time to divvy up that money. There's the financial tools managers, the financial management side of it. And I enjoy creating, like I've been off and on doing my Magic Club podcast, which I enjoy doing the podcast. All of the work around it, the editing and everything else like that is a pain. And so much of that could be automated. There's so many things. There's so many tools that we thought that people would be creating for podcasting 10 years ago that are not even around now. And just some people are starting to create versions of that. And part of me is like, man, should I just sit down to like make some of the stuff? Because I've been frustrated by like, no, I think there's a really big market for it if you understand what the whole problem is. But a lot of the tools and stuff the tech industry come out with are designed to solve the problems for people in that side of it. When it comes to artistic tools, there are not enough artists creating apps. I would say that's a problem. But I think so 10 years from now, I think that we're going to have much better tools for creation. I think we're going to have much better tools and analytics for really understanding what people like or what they don't like. I think the tools for collaboration are going to get better, and I think we're going to continuously watch. You watch the quality of a lot of YouTube shows now. It's better than or better than cable television in many cases. Better than a lot of stuff you see that, you go watch a cable channel and you watch some of these channels like, wow, like I see better stuff on YouTube now because quality people are making it and the quality rises. There's a crap problem, and that's the problem of like there's been a big crackdown on these these videos designed for kids keyword searches.
Mm-hmm.
You ever type in like Joker Spider-Man into like YouTube and see what comes up?
No.
Well, no, there's the whole like what is it? Elsa Spider-Man, that's like just like this huge gigantic YouTube channel, and it's just these two weirdos like rolling around in Elsa and Spider-Man costumes.
Yeah, you'll like shot literally in somebody's back patio. You'll have like two kids in Spider-Man costumes driving cars, pulling up to a window of the back door, and there's somebody in a Hulk costume giving them McDonald's.
And then that's the video.
Yeah, like that. 10 minutes of this sort of stuff, and it is there's some people who just outrage over it. I'm like, I think some of the outrage is a little bit all right. This is dumb, but I mean, some of it just, there's the regular like unboxing stuff, but like if you type in, they actually just got rid of another channel.
I'll tell you what, man. Ultimately, what I care about is that my kids shut up and watch this. And I don't really care how good or bad the quality of that content is, as long as it doesn't lead to awkward questions.
I watched one of the videos that was really criticized, and it was like this, it was, again, shot in somebody's backyard, and these people are using licensed characters, which I'm sure Disney was having a problem with. But I'm watching this, I'm going like, I don't know if this is any worse than Teletubbies.
Yes. It looks weird.
Oh, wow. Wow. Ugh.
Right?
What's happening?
They updated Firefox, and so it's supposed to be super fast and all, but it's super
It
weird.
really looks like a
It looks like I
a
opened.
budget Android tablet.
I thought I opened up Edge or something.
Uh-huh.
All right, let me see if continue now. Oh, it didn't save any of that stuff because we were still recording it. That's fun. Okay.
Firefox Quantum.
Note all. Okay. Well, gonna have to do that anyway. Let's do show notes. New video. Hi everybody. We should be back.
Yay!
Yay!
Do this here. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let's just stop this. Give me one extra second and we can get. Hopefully, you guys remember where you left off because I do not.
I do.
You do? Okay, great. Make sure that's there. That's there.
Yeah, dude, it just was suddenly pitch black. Just and
Oh,
then
jeez.
this awkward moment of like, well, that's different. You know?
That didn't happen like that. All right. Take it away, guys.
As far as the content of some of these, like, what are being kind of these vilified YouTube channels, I think some of them rightfully so, because some of it's like, I don't know, like, you know, a father terrorizing his daughter after she's lost a tooth. But the ones where they have like just, you know, licensed characters that are not being licensed, you know, in somebody's backyard, you know, at a not really a Burger King being fed by the Hulk. Yeah, I don't know that they're any worse than Teletubbies, you know, and, you know, Brian's point of like, I just want my kids to shut up.
I meant that in the most loving way a father can, by the way.
When in Brian's statement of I want my kids to find other forms of stimulation besides just looking inwards towards the family, looking to the world around them for things in which they can be enriched. I think that, you know, yeah, like I look at this and I get why students like, it's just like kids driving in Spider-Man costumes, driving little electric go-karts around and being chased by a Hulk police officer. It makes no sense. It's like, I got news for you. Most children's content at a certain point makes no sense. And when we decided to make the TV the babysitter, every screen became a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, there's a reason why kids programming leaves like half of their runtime so kids can yell back at the television, right? Like, isn't it's just like all the preschool stuff is all like, I'm gonna do a thing, right? Am I?
Yes, do the thing. Yep.
Maybe that's how we can change after things. Make it that format. We
Right.
do 1/3 the work. I'm gonna make a YouTube channel. Should I?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I did.
Hooray!
All right, I will.
I'm excited. I think that what we need though is I think more artists need to be making tools. I think that's what Patreon came from, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, it was Jack Conti from Papamoose, you know, wanting to figure out a new way to monetize their channel, and you know, this is something that I've had conversations with people. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but I'll just say in general. But like, I've had conversations with people at Twitch, and you know, there were some people that were like, hey, look, we can do better. We can do better. There's no reason why people should be giving money to Patreon when they can be giving money through Twitch, and it's like, yes, and you should always be looking to make reasons why your platform should reward people giving money through your platform. But the one thing the Patreon and Drip and everything else will always have is they're not you. And you can change ownership, and you can change leadership, and you can make decisions that now mean the money that is coming from you is either less, more, or different. What the off-platform solution can say is, we're not that, and you're less likely to be able to say, like, if they're like, all right, well, I mean, sure, if Patreon got sold to Amazon or something else tomorrow, and now was looking to monetize shit in a different way, then maybe we would be wary about them too. But for right now, they're great because they're the bank, and they're not where I make my money otherwise.
I'm gonna give you kind of kind of like an interesting sort of story is that you take like online payments or payment services in general. PayPal was at the forefront, obviously. Hey, the internet, people are going to want to buy things on the internet. And when PayPal started, there was still the argument like, we think it's a niche thing. The internet's just sort of an electronic catalog kind of thing. People want to go to stores and feel goods and do this sort of stuff. This is what people convinced themselves and told themselves. And I have numerous examples. At some point I have examples of talking to execs within a company, very, very big media company, and listening to them explain to me like, oh yeah, no, well, we're not worried about this thing at all because the numbers are really this. And now they're in complete panic mode 2 years later because I'm like, what about this? Oh no. And then, but anyhow, PayPal, great example of like, hey, we think that online people buying things online, probably a big thing. And they had to fight and work hard. It wasn't like, hey, we have the solution. Everybody's like, oh, thank goodness. Finally, they had to fight to make that a reality. Another company a decade later, which was Square. Square says, hey, trying to get a credit card terminal or to do credit card transactions, even in real physical space, is still a pain. It's still a challenge. It's still not that easy to do it. And Square's like, every phone, every smartphone has a connection to the internet. We put a little dongle in there and you could swipe a credit card. And it was one of these things like, there's got to be reasons why nobody's done that. No, the reason's often that nobody tried to make it work, or somebody did it and didn't have quite the right solution, or the other elements weren't there. Square came out, Square launched as a company, and Square came up with this very easy sort of thing to do. And when you got a Square, device, you knew it as sort of that dongle, it was a technological solution, which wasn't like, wasn't the most super genius innovative one, but it was still it did exactly what it needed to do. And Square was started by Jack Dorsey, one of the founders of Jack Dorsey, one of the founders of Square, is one of the founders of Twitter. Square just passed Twitter in stock market value. And they solved a problem that people went like, it's a tiny little, is it really that big of a deal? Is it really that hard to get a credit card terminal? Is it really hard to do this? How many times have you walked on into a business now and you paid via Square?
100%. Yeah. No,
Yep.
it's huge. I mean, I was just at PAX Unplugged, and that was the way that ran. If you're a merchant, you had a Square terminal.
And so often it's
or
these
something.
tools that are just slightly better than everything else, but you get rid of that little bit of friction and you don't realize there's a lot of little points of friction to getting something done. And that can be applied to podcasting. Patreon solved it, because you could use say Patreon. Well, why don't you just have a PayPal buy button, that people click every month, or a subscription thing? Why don't you just do a YouTube, or PayPal subscription button? They have those, and that was an argument. People were like, you just have this thing, and it's the same thing, and you sometimes have to go like, no, there's a reason why, and it's not that people don't want to subscribe to stuff. It's just that the fulfillment. There's a lot more little speed bumps there than people realize. And sometimes it's not the big leap; it's getting rid of a few of those little bumps, and then it's easy. So
You got any picks? I'll go first. I watched this last night. Based on Justin's recommendation, I canceled my Sling account, which they made very easy to do, but I still had a few days left on it, so I was able to use Sling to authenticate and let me watch the ESPN 30 for 30 documentary on Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, he's kind of a piece of garbage, huh?
but lovable, but also I can't imagine the pain of what he's gone through, losing a son like that. And
I mean, without getting too far into it, that is the dichotomy of Ric Flair. Is like you almost feel guilty for liking him so much, you know. Specifically when you get into it, but I thought it was a good job. Hey, I'm gonna call my own number. Sorry, no, Andrew, were you saying something?
No, please.
I'm gonna call my own number here, guys. I gave a talk over the weekend.
How did that go?
It went great. You can see it at bit.ly/ksmoney, all lowercase. I made a little bit.ly for it. Bit.ly/ksmoney. How to lose $40,000 on Kickstarter. John and I gave the talk at PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia this weekend, and it went great. I was super, super happy to be a part of the PAX programming for the first time, and this was a great crowd for this kind of talk. We were thrilled to give it. If you want to listen to the mistakes we made in terms of losing $40,000 on Kickstarter, it is not what I think a lot of people assume, which is just budgeting problems. We actually budgeted the project perfectly. we wound up kind of succumbing to a little bit of overactive enthusiasm, and then everything we did to crawl our way out of debt is also part of it. So surprise, there is a happy ending. But go ahead and check it out. That is bit.ly/KSmoney.
So I've been using the iPhone 10 now for a couple weeks. Love it. Really, really enjoy it. And I'm excited. I was at a party last night, and I was showing a friend, like they were playing on video equipment. I made a quick video using the 4K 24 frame per second, which cool, looks cinematic. And my friend's like, oh, okay, iPhone has cool cameras. I'm like, no, actually, like the latest like Samsung phone has probably even better video. You know, like it's great. They're all getting great. You know, they're all cool. You know, and that's what I love is they're all doing awesome things. One of my favorite apps is Clips, which talk about making things easier to do. Clips has been an app that Apple came out with to make it very easy to create quick little videos and stuff. And one of the things they've integrated now into Clips is using that augmented reality, the AR kit. So if you want to have a background, the background moves with you. And I'm going to show you a quick video I made. Hey, look who I found. And who else?
Oh, nice. So for those of you just listening, it is Andrew looking like a hologram on the Millennium Falcon, and behind him is indeed the Millennium Falcon.
That's amazing.
So what happens is you film yourself and you move the camera. If you move your camera around you, it adjusts the background accordingly. So you have a virtual set it uses the front camera that's got the depth field. So it's got the 3D, you know, the lens, the camera that uses the depth motion dots, the Kinect technology that Microsoft licensed and now Apple's licensed. It uses that Kinect technology to make a 3D map of where you are and then figure out what's not you, which is background, maps everything in back of you in 3D space. So as you move your phone around you, it adjusts the set and creates a virtual set on a phone. You know, and it's, you know, and you're going to see it not just here. You're going to see Google versions of this and other kinds of stuff. This whole virtual set stuff is just people like, it's quick. I'm like, do you realize what it's doing? You know, I mean, it's like back in the day when you had to green screen, and granted, the lines aren't the cleanest on this, but, you know, trying to green screen and create an edge that it live green screens everything out in back of you because it has a depth map. It's like, it's just insane. And you know, Apple came out with, you know, AR Kit, which is amazing. Google released, I think, AR Core or whatever that is, which is their tool set. Microsoft's going to have more stuff for HoloLens. Where this stuff is going is just insane. Absolutely insane. So I love they pull out this app called Clips. You're like, oh, this is really cool. Like I'm on the Millennium Falcon, you can do it. I'm on a Stardust store, or I'm in this kind of Neo Tokyo looking environment. Like, I'm like, wait, like this is amazing. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And my review on the iPhone X, which I got last week, is FaceTime is insane. Or
Face
the
ID?
face recognition. It
Yeah.
just
The Face ID.
just crazy. I was on the plane, red eye to Philadelphia, I decided to put on sunglasses, pitch black plane, and it was unlocking my face like on the red eye. It's remarkable what it does.
That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's so fast and seamless. I show it to people like, whoop, like, oh, well, let me show you Face ID. I'm like, no, that was Face ID.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so cool. All right, we good?
We're the best.
There ever was.
It's been after.
Ooh, yeah. All right, gang. In an hour, I'm doing 1-900 Wrestling with a returning Willie Dills Gregory. I will see y'all there.
Sweet.
Oh yeah, bye everybody. Thank you for coming and watching this last bit of the stream.
Yeah.
We'll see you also. Yeah. We'll
Love
see guys.
you.
Later.